There comes a moment in every man's life when he must ask himself a hard question. Is this relationship costing me my peace? It's a question the ancient Stoics would not only encourage, but insist you answer with brutal honesty. For the Stoic, peace of mind isn't a luxury, it's a duty. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." But what happens when the disturbance is not war, poverty, or politics, but the very person sleeping next to you? You may feel conflicted, you care, you remember the good times, but slowly you realize that your emotional clarity is fogged, your purpose diluted, and your time devoured. You no longer feel like yourself. This video is not about hating women, nor is it a justification for blaming others for your own dissatisfaction. Stoicism rejects the victim mindset. But it does teach this. Recognize destructive patterns early, before they shape your life. A wise man doesn't argue with a storm, he simply seeks shelter. In this journey, we will examine 7 clear signs that the woman by your side may be eroding your tranquility. Not every woman is toxic, but when certain behaviors appear consistently, the Stoic must respond, not with emotion, but with reason. This is a video for the man who values virtue over validation, peace over chaos, and clarity over confusion. Let's begin with the first and most common red flag. She's always the victim. In a world shaped by shifting narratives, one of the most deceptive patterns a man can encounter is the presence of a perpetual victim. This is the person who, no matter the context, always manages to be the one who was hurt, betrayed, misunderstood, or unfairly treated, never once pausing to consider her own role in the unfolding events. At first, this might seem like vulnerability. You feel the urge to protect her. Her stories are emotional, layered with pain and injustice. And if you're a man with empathy and conscience, you may even admire her resilience. But over time, something changes. You begin to notice that her misfortunes are constant and strangely convenient. Every argument ends with her as the one who suffered. Every conflict, no matter how clearly mutual, is spun into her martyrdom. This is where Stoicism offers a lens of clarity. Epictetus once said, "It is not events that disturb people, it is their judgments concerning them." The Stoic knows that we are all responsible for our responses, for our part in every interaction. A person who never reflects on their own role, never says "I was wrong" or "I could have handled it better," is not growing. They are escaping. A woman who always sees herself as the victim does not want resolution. She wants control. Victimhood becomes her currency. It buys her attention, pity, and even power over you. You begin walking on eggshells, filtering your truth, hiding your discomfort just to avoid triggering another story of how she was once again wronged. This behavior is not harmless. It subtly makes you the villain, even when you've done nothing wrong. It erodes your confidence, challenges your reality, and chips away at your sense of self. With time, you may begin to doubt your judgment. You might even internalize her narratives as truth. But the Stoic rejects falsehood, especially when it wears the mask of innocence. To remain in such a dynamic is to trade your inner peace for someone else's emotional manipulation. It is to become a constant fixer of storms you did not cause. This is not compassion, it is self-abandonment. The remedy? Clarity. Do not argue with the victim. Do not try to prove your side or fix her worldview. That is not your task. Your task is to see things as they are, not as they are dramatized. As Marcus Aurelius reminds us, "If someone can prove me wrong and show me my mistake, I will gladly change. It is the truth I seek." And truth does not exist in one-sided stories repeated until they silence yours. A Stoic man understands that some people are committed to their wounds because healing would mean giving up the attention that pain provides. And he also knows this: you cannot carry someone who refuses to walk. When you encounter someone who is always the victim, remember, true love requires accountability. Without it, there can be no growth, no virtue, and no peace. And where there is no peace, the Stoic must walk away. Let's now explore the second, more chaotic sign. She's addicted to drama. Where the perpetual victim subtly manipulates through emotional narratives, the drama-addicted woman takes it further. Her life is a never-ending theater of chaos. If peace is the Stoic's temple, she is the earthquake that shakes its very foundation. You'll recognize her by the intensity, not the passionate kind that inspires, but the volatile kind that drains. Every day brings a new crisis. A friend betrayed her, her co-worker disrespected her, her family doesn't appreciate her. You didn't reply fast enough. She doesn't seek harmony. She thrives in turbulence. At first, it might seem exciting. She's intense, expressive, always animated. But slowly the thrill becomes fatigue. Conversations become confrontations. Calm moments become suspicious. You find yourself dreading the next emotional eruption. Stoicism teaches us to seek inner balance amidst outer storms. But what if the storm is the person beside you? Seneca warned. We suffer more in imagination than in reality. A woman addicted to drama doesn't just suffer reality, she creates new pain out of imagined offenses, turning minor issues into emotional warfare. She will test your limits, provoke reactions, and punish your calm. Why? Because peace is unfamiliar to her. Chaos gives her a sense of importance. In such a dynamic, you become less of a man and more of a firefighter, constantly putting out flames you didn't ignite. You begin to feel anxious, not because of what's happening, but because you know that at any moment, something will. Your emotional state becomes dependent on her mood, and that is the most dangerous loss of all, when your inner world is no longer yours. A Stoic man must ask, is this a relationship or a battle I never signed up for? Marcus Aurelius reminds us, you have power over your mind, not outside events. But if you tether yourself to someone whose mind is a battlefield, you're no longer exercising that power. You're forfeiting it. This doesn't mean you lack compassion. It means you understand the limits of your responsibility. You cannot bring calm to someone who fears stillness. You cannot teach silence to someone addicted to noise. You can only control your participation. The Stoic response to drama is not to confront it with equal fire, but to disengage, to observe without absorption, to stand firm in calm while the storm passes, outside of you, not through you. She may accuse you of being cold, distant, uncaring, but understand, this is not about lacking emotion, it's about protecting it. A man who lets drama into his soul abandons the clarity of reason, and without reason, he becomes a pawn in her performance. Eventually, you'll see the pattern. When things are too calm, she creates chaos just to feel alive. But you, as a Stoic, are not meant to live reactive. You are meant to live deliberate. When the world spins, the Stoic remains still. When the woman by your side spins with it and drags you into her storm, it's time to remember who you are. Next, we'll examine a more subtle, yet equally powerful weapon of manipulation. She controls you through guilt. Not all control is loud. Some of it wears the quiet voice of disappointment, the subtle sigh, the loaded silence. And few tools are as effective in emotional manipulation as guilt. A woman who controls through guilt doesn't scream. She doesn't need to. Her power lies in the pause, the phrase left half-spoken, the subtle suggestion that you've failed her, not in action, but in intention. You didn't forget her birthday, you forgot to care, you didn't cancel your plans, you chose them over her. This form of control is insidious. It bypasses your logic and strikes directly at your sense of morality. You begin questioning yourself, am I being selfish, cold, unloving? But here's the Stoic truth. Emotions must serve reason, not govern it. Epictetus teaches, if someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. The same applies to guilt. If you feel it, it's not always because you've done wrong. It's often because your values are being weaponized against you. The guilt-controlling woman masters this. She presents herself as the standard of what love should look like, then accuses you of falling short, not through direct confrontation, but through emotional suggestion. She doesn't say, you don't love me. She says, it's okay, I didn't expect you to remember anyway. And suddenly, you feel small. Over time, this dynamic poisons your clarity. You no longer make decisions based on what is right or virtuous. You make them to avoid her disappointment. You become reactive, not reflective. Your actions lose integrity because they are born of fear, not principle. Stoicism urges you to act from virtue. Marcus Aurelius wrote, if it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. This is the foundation of Stoic conduct: rationality, honesty, intention. But guilt replaces intention with obligation, and a life lived in obligation to someone else's fragile emotional balance is a life out of alignment with virtue. You are not meant to be a puppet pulled by strings of emotional debt. You are a man, a moral agent with sovereignty over your choices. You were not made to apologize for having needs, boundaries, or a life outside of someone else's approval. To break free from guilt-based control, the Stoic must become still. Observe the manipulation without anger, recognize it for what it is, and respond, not with justification or defense, but with calm truth. You do not need to explain your every action. You do not need to earn your freedom. You only need to act rightly, and let her interpretation be hers. When guilt no longer binds you, peace returns. Because guilt, when unjustified, is not proof of wrongdoing, it's proof of control. And a Stoic man is never controlled by emotion, only guided by reason. Now let's explore what happens when that emotional connection isn't just misused, it's entirely absent. She lacks empathy. Emotional manipulation is one thing, but emotional absence is another. Perhaps the most chilling realization in any relationship is this: when you suffer, she simply doesn't care. A woman who lacks empathy isn't necessarily cruel. She might even appear supportive on the surface. She'll ask, "Are you okay?" but check her phone while you answer. She'll be present physically, but absent emotionally. Her comfort feels like an obligation, not a choice. Her kindness feels transactional, not sincere. To the Stoic, this absence is deeply revealing. True connection, as the Stoics understood, is built on shared humanity. Marcus Aurelius said, "What injures the hive injures the bee." We are interconnected. And while Stoicism emphasizes self-control and resilience, it does not reject human compassion. In fact, it honors it, as long as it is real. When empathy is missing, the Stoic sees clearly. This is not a safe space, it's a performance. Imagine opening your heart after a brutal day, hoping for softness and receiving silence or worse, annoyance. You begin to hesitate before sharing. You tell yourself, maybe I'm being dramatic, maybe it's not important, but what's really happening is far more serious. Your emotional reality is being dismissed. A relationship without empathy becomes a prison. You're alone, even in company. You suppress your needs because her indifference has trained you to. You start to believe your pain is invisible, or worse, invalid. This erodes the spirit of any man. But the Stoic doesn't beg for empathy. He sees the woman as she is, not as he wishes her to be. He doesn't romanticize her potential. He doesn't tell himself she'll change once things get better. Because a lack of empathy is not circumstantial. It's fundamental. Epictetus teaches, It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows. In the same way, a woman who believes she's already doing enough, already present, already caring, will never learn how to actually show up for you. You cannot teach empathy to someone who does not want to feel. So what does the Stoic do? He accepts, not with bitterness, but with realism. He does not demand what cannot be given. He does not punish, plead, or chase. He simply adjusts his expectations and, eventually, his proximity. This isn't cruelty, it's self-respect. A Stoic man honors his emotions, but does not hand them over carelessly. He knows that vulnerability must be met with safety, or it becomes self-harm. If she cannot be present in your low moments, she does not deserve to walk beside you in your high ones. And while the world may call this harsh, the Stoic calls it wisdom. You do not need someone who claps when you win. You need someone who sees you bleeding and doesn't look away. But some women are blind, not just to your pain, but to what truly matters in life. Let's now examine a dangerous sign of misplaced values. She's obsessed with superficiality. When empathy is absent, depth disappears, and in its place, superficiality reigns. A woman obsessed with appearances lives on the surface of everything: her values, her relationships, her sense of self. She seeks validation through status, clothing labels, social media likes, and the illusion of perfection. Her worth is measured by the admiration she can extract, not the integrity she embodies. At first glance, her confidence may be alluring. She always looks polished, talks about standards, and seems to have her life curated like a gallery. But you'll soon realize it's all veneer. Scratch beneath it, and there's no foundation, just anxiety, insecurity, and a desperate need to be seen. To the Stoic, this obsession is not only empty, it's dangerous. Epictetus warned, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." A woman consumed by superficiality is never satisfied. She always needs more admiration, more attention, more things. Her hunger is insatiable, not because she's greedy, but because she's spiritually starved. You may find yourself competing with illusions, competing with her phone, competing with her image of a perfect life. And worse, competing with the version of you she wants to display, rather than the man you actually are. She doesn't celebrate your virtue, your inner calm, your discipline. She celebrates your car, your suit, your Instagram caption. The Stoic man, however, is not interested in playing a character. He's interested in living in truth. Seneca said, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor." A woman chasing shallow things will always make you feel like you're not enough, because she feels that way about herself. Her love is conditional. If you meet the aesthetic, if you bring status, if you help maintain the image. But the moment you falter, when you're tired, honest, or simply real, she becomes distant or dismissive. Why? Because authenticity threatens illusion. This woman doesn't want connection, she wants projection. And if you're not careful, you'll start shaping yourself to fit her fantasy. You'll chase wealth for approval, status for affection, and validation for peace. But Stoicism reminds you, that kind of peace is false. True peace comes from within. It's built on virtue, not vanity, on character, not cosmetics. The Stoic man must recognize this pattern early, not to condemn, but to choose. He knows the danger of tying his inner self-worth to someone whose life is built on performance. He knows that a relationship rooted in appearance will wither under pressure, because beauty fades, trends shift, and admiration is fleeting. You need more than a woman who turns heads. You need one who turns inward, because in the end, the Stoic seeks not the brightest star, but the steadiest flame. And when a woman cannot look past the mirror to see the man standing before her, it's time to walk away. But what if the problem isn't what she values, but what she refuses to admit? Let's now explore a critical sign of emotional immaturity. she can't admit she's wrong. Superficiality blinds a person to the truth, but pride silences it entirely. One of the most damaging signs of a toxic relationship is the refusal to admit fault. A woman who cannot say the simple words, "I was wrong," isn't just avoiding blame, she's denying reality. And when someone refuses to confront reality, trust, intimacy, and growth all die quietly. At first, it may seem like confidence. She appears assertive, strong-willed, unapologetic. But over time, you'll notice a disturbing pattern. Every disagreement somehow becomes your fault. Every mistake she makes is justified. Every misunderstanding ends with you apologizing, often for things you didn't even do. And if you ever point it out, she shifts the narrative. She distorts the facts. She remembers a different version of events, a version where she's innocent and you're unreasonable. It's not about resolution, it's about control. To the Stoic, truth is sacred. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If someone can prove me wrong and show me my mistake, I will gladly change. It is the truth I seek." A virtuous man doesn't fear correction, he welcomes it. But a woman who can never admit she's wrong does the opposite. She fears accountability because it threatens the fragile identity she clings to. And so she doubles down, she argues louder, she rewrites history, she blames your tone, your timing, your reaction, anything but her own actions. In this dynamic, your voice begins to shrink. You suppress your truth just to keep the peace. You avoid difficult conversations because you know they'll go nowhere. And slowly, you start to feel invisible, not because you're not speaking, but because you're never heard. Stoicism teaches that external chaos is not the problem. It's our internal reaction to it that matters. But when the chaos is constant denial of truth, the wise man doesn't just regulate his emotions, he also protects his reality. You cannot build a stable relationship with someone who lives in distortion. Epictetus said, "It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows." If she always believes she's right, she will never grow. If she never admits her flaws, she will never heal. And if she never owns her actions, she will always transfer the consequences to you. This behavior isn't just exhausting, it's destructive. It makes you question your memory, your logic, even your sanity. And that is not love. That is erasure. A Stoic man doesn't need to be right all the time, but he needs to be with someone who can be wrong with humility. Someone who understands that making a mistake isn't weakness, it's being human. And acknowledging it isn't defeat, it's the beginning of strength. But when pride replaces truth, there can be no trust. And without trust, there is no relationship, only performance. So ask yourself, is this a partnership or a courtroom? Are you sharing life or standing trial? And remember, silence may be powerful, but honesty is sacred. Up next, we confront one of the most overlooked signs of a toxic presence. She disrespects your time. Some signs are loud, others are subtle, almost invisible. Among the most quietly corrosive is this: she does not value your time. Time, to the Stoic, is sacred. It is the only resource you cannot earn back once spent. Seneca, in his brilliant essay on the shortness of life, wrote, "People are frugal in guarding their personal property, but as soon as it comes to squandering time, they are most wasteful of the one thing in which it is right to be stingy." A woman who disrespects your time will show it in many small ways, being chronically late, cancelling plans last minute, making you wait without apology, or hijacking your focus with unnecessary drama and disorganization. And when you address it, she deflects, makes excuses, or worse, accuses you of being controlling or uptight. But the truth is this: someone who doesn't respect your time doesn't respect your life, because your time is your life, measured out in days, hours, and irreplaceable moments. At first, it might seem harmless. You overlook the lateness, you forgive the flaky communication. but over time it begins to hurt. You feel unprioritized, disregarded. Slowly, your calendar fills with obligations you didn't choose. Your peace is interrupted by chaos you didn't create, and your energy is drained by someone who treats your schedule like an afterthought. And here's where the Stoic perspective cuts through illusion. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, do not waste what remains of your life in speculating about your neighbors. Stop letting your mind be enslaved. The Stoic man applies this not only to thought, but to presence. He does not surrender his time to the careless or the chronically late. He knows that generosity must have limits, and one of those limits is disrespect. Time spent waiting on someone who never shows up, physically, emotionally, or spiritually, is time stolen from your purpose. A relationship should enhance your rhythm, not disrupt it. It should sharpen your focus, not scatter it. And a partner who values you will value your minutes, because she understands that behind every schedule is a man with a mission. If she consistently violates your time, and your attempts to communicate are met with indifference, the Stoic knows what to do. He doesn't rage, he doesn't beg, he simply adjusts access. He creates boundaries, he reclaims what is his, and that includes his time, his attention, and his sacred stillness. You cannot force someone to value what you treasure, but you can choose not to leave your treasures in careless hands. And so, when she shows up late to your peace, walks out early on your discipline, or distracts you from the path of virtue, you don't argue, you exit, not in anger, but in awareness, not to punish her, but to preserve yourself, because while love can be patient, your purpose cannot be postponed forever. And no woman, no matter how beautiful, charming, or charismatic, is worth the cost of losing time you'll never get back. Now, with all 7 signs revealed, it's time to ask the final question. What will the Stoic man do next? Let's close with the most important decision of all, the choice to walk away with peace, clarity, and honor. You've seen the signs. She always plays the victim. She thrives on drama. She manipulates through guilt. She lacks empathy. She's obsessed with the surface. She can't admit her faults. She disrespects your time. Individually, these traits are harmful. Together, they form a pattern that threatens your clarity, drains your energy, and chips away at your identity. And if left unchecked, that pattern becomes your life. But here's the truth. The Stoic man must hold firm. You are not obligated to stay where your peace is dying. Letting go is not weakness. It is wisdom. It is not unkind. It is courageous. For while the world teaches men to endure, to fix her, to prove their love by sacrificing themselves, the Stoic knows that love without virtue is not love at all. It's dependency, it's ego, it's fear. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Just that you do the right thing, the rest doesn't matter." And sometimes the right thing is walking away, not with bitterness but with honor. You don't need to argue. You don't need revenge. You don't need to make her understand. You only need to choose yourself, your peace, your mission, your future. Because when you protect your peace, you protect everything that makes you a man of virtue. Your focus, your discipline, your integrity. And from that place of strength, the right people will come, not to test you, but to walk beside you. The Stoic man does not fight chaos with chaos. He doesn't stay to prove a point. He steps back, reflects, and acts, not from emotion, but from reason. And above all, he remembers, the most sacred relationship in life is the one you have with your own soul. So if you find yourself beside someone who cannot meet you with truth, presence, and peace, let them go. Not because they are evil, but because you are finally good to yourself.